Now that we've looked at Matthew's genealogy in a bit more detail, I want us to just zoom back a little bit and look at what he says in verse 17, where he gives a bit of a summary. He said, all the generations from Abraham to David are 14, and from David to Babylon, another 14 generations. And then he says, from Babylon to the Messiah, another 14 generations. So let's have a quick look at this. Now this is the first block here, and it has 14 generations. This is the second block here, and it has 14 generations. And this is the third block here, and it has 13 generations. Now that is a bit of a strange thing. What is this about? Has Matthew made a mistake? And again, I don't think he has. Somebody who has researched everything as carefully as Matthew has would have not made that kind of mistake of accidentally miscounting his genealogy. Now, some interesting ideas have been proposed. One is that, for example, Joseph and Mary should possibly be counted as 2 generations. Maybe Joseph was considerably older than Mary, and those should be seen as 2 generations. Other people, maybe to put forth a bit more of a spiritual solution, have made a case that maybe the Holy Spirit should be counted as the next generation after Jesus. Now, all of those solutions are not ideal. I think the one that is most likely true is the one that we should count David twice. Why is that? Well, that is the way that Matthew tells us to count. He says from Abraham to David, so we have Abraham here, and then all the way to David, that's 14, and then from David to the deportation, 14. So instead of starting with Solomon in the second block, we should start with David again. So David to the deportation is 14, and then we would have Jeconiah as the first one after the deportation. And remember, he was released from prison, and so in a way he was kicking off that time after the deportation. So it's legitimate to say those are the 14, those are the 14, and then here Jeconiah should actually be counted to that group, and then we also have 14 here. Now let's just then finally ask the question, what is up? What's up with this number 14? And the answer is that it's a gematria. Gematria is sort of an ancient science, I'm not sure you would call it science today, that assigns certain numbers to letters. So you would, for example, use an alpha and you would assign the number 1 to it, and so on. Now the idea back then was that if you sum up the numbers that the letters represent in a certain word, you come to a sum. And if you find another word that has a similar sum, those words would probably in some spiritual sense be related to each other. So that's a gematria. Now the gematria of 14 is can be written as this one. This is the Hebrew letter for Dalet, and it was a 4. And this one is the Hebrew letter for Vav, and that is 6. And then if you add another Dalet, you get another 4, and that would be 14. And this Dalet, Vav, Dalet means, of course, D, David. So remember, in the Hebrew, you wouldn't bring out the vowels in your writing. So 14 is a reference to David, to King David. And I think what Matthew is saying here is that even in Jesus' genealogy, even before he was born, his life had King David, and by that, the new Messiah king, written all over it.